Courtney and I, although childless, had been happily married for over 10 years. Having children was something we both wanted, but we waited until we were confident in our careers and could financially support a family on one income. Both in our 30s and successful lawyers, I was a civil trial attorney, and Courtney practiced contract law for a well-known local firm in our hometown. We finally reached a financial level that allowed us to attend our first American Bar Association National Convention, something we both had once looked forward to. During the long drive to the headquarters hotel, our main conversation was about having a baby. We both agreed it was time, but Courtney admitted she was worried about the prospect. It was at the board of directors' reception on Wednesday night that everything fell apart. The evening started well, with both of us enjoying the atmosphere and fellowship of fellow lawyers. Late in the evening, after the formal part of the reception had ended, there was more drinking, dancing, and loud talking. I noticed that Courtney was in a playful mood, which always led to marathon sex at the end of the evening. Courtney was a beautiful woman with a lively personality, although somewhat quirky and always flirtatious. Tonight was no exception. I, on the other hand, was more calm and reserved, which was very unusual for a trial lawyer at social events. As a rule, I blended into the background, enjoying watching people and how they interacted. If someone started a conversation, I would actively participate, but I rarely initiated conversations with people I didn't know. As Courtney ordered her fourth mojito of the evening, I ran my hand along the inside of her stocking-covered thigh and slowly approached her womb. I felt the warmth she radiated with my fingers. That evening, I had spent an inordinate amount of time on the dance floor with numerous partners and was looking forward to returning to our hotel room. When I finally got where I wanted to go, I realized she was no longer wearing the black thongs she had been wearing when she got dressed. My eyes lit up as I met her dark green eyes. She had that smoky, sexy look in her eyes, and I was ready to take her right there in the club. She leaned forward, revealing most of her thigh and ample breasts. She let out a low whisper of approval and purred, "I want to have fun tonight, honey." Without taking my eyes off her, I responded, "I see it. I feel it too, baby. Let's go to the room." Courtney replied, "Look around, honey. We have never been to this city before. Do you see anyone you know?" I looked around reflexively. "No, I think not. What's the matter?" Courtney said, "I want to have fun tonight." It was impossible not to notice the very strong emphasis on I. I was stunned. I undoubtedly understood what she was talking about, but although I was deeply shocked and seriously wounded, as an experienced trial lawyer, I instinctively knew not to show my true emotions. I couldn't imagine where it came from. The only thing I could point to as a possible warning sign was her reluctance to have a child, and yet she had just agreed to do just that. "I see. But what about our relationship?" I asked. She ignored my question. She was not a trial lawyer, but she knew how to question witnesses and not let her opponent distract her attention. She sighed. "Was I a good wife? In the 15 years we have been together, have you ever had the slightest doubt about my love and complete devotion to you since we became exclusive freshman year? Name one time, just one. I know I'm flirting, but have you ever had doubts about me when you've watched me do it?" I knew she had made the easiest rookie mistake a lawyer can make, asking a question to which she did not know the answer. But in truth, there was no mistake because she knew the answer. "No, it was not. I never had any doubts about your commitment to our relationship until 30 seconds ago. Why now?" I resigned myself to the inevitable. It was amazing how quiet she seemed in the middle of a nightclub with flashing lights, loud chest-thumping music, and a DJ with over 200 drunk lawyers milling around. In the midst of all this, we spoke in a normal voice, but did not miss a single syllable from each other. "I told you that I'm ready to give birth. I just want this weekend to be mine. I deserve it, and on Monday, I will throw away my birth control pills for the sake of our future." She pushed my hand away, leaned back in her chair, and crossed her arms over her chest, emphasizing her ample cleavage and making it clear that the conversation was over. "I understand. Have you chosen anyone yet?" I asked. naturally already knowing the answer. Yes, she answered quietly but firmly. Okay, and the last question, what reward are you willing to pay? What reward? Don't play the fool with me. You're a contract lawyer. You know what compensation is. What do you offer me for consideration? What price are you willing to pay? Now I was close to losing control. I was dumbfounded at how quickly my life was falling apart. Darling, the only cost in question is your ego. I know that by doing this, I will hurt you, and I will spend the next 30 years trying to make that pain go away. It has nothing to do with what we have. It's Wednesday evening, and we don't have to leave until Saturday morning. I'll go back to our hotel room on Friday night, and we'll start practicing making babies. Everything will be fine. It was all over. 15 years together, more than 10 years of marriage, the end of our family, which would never exist, no baby showers, birthday parties, first days of school, graduations, bridesmaids, or grandchildren jumping on our laps. She had just admitted that she intentionally hurt me, a deliberate violation if you will, and she didn't even blink. For some reason, it didn't matter to her. Okay, I am going to sleep. I don't know when I'll see you. I turned and left without looking back. I heard her calling me, but I no longer cared what she said. Well, everything went better than I expected, I thought to myself smugly. What was that? I don't know when I'll see you. I thought no more about it and turned my attention to my intended target. I looked into his eyes and smiled seductively. I stood up and crept up to him. I walked in a state of sexual frenzy that I had never experienced before. I couldn't remember his name, but I remembered how his huge, erect manhood pressed against my thigh when we danced dirty recently. The incredible truth was that until that very moment, I felt the man's on my leg. I had never once thought about being unfaithful to Andrew. I suddenly made a decision that broke my life, which I simply did not imagine. I didn't know how I managed to get back into the room. I vaguely remembered someone asking if I was okay while I was in the elevator, but my head was spinning, and I was in slight shock at what had happened. Everything seemed so unreal. One minute I was fantasizing about the wonderful sex Courtney and I would have, and the next minute my marriage was over. I wasn't sure how long I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall, but eventually a plan formed. I knew what I had to do and forced myself to go forward. It was only a 3.5-hour drive home, but I knew I had a couple of days to get everything done. I knew I wouldn't exist for Courtney for the next 48 hours. I had plenty of time to do what needed to be done. I realized that first thing in the morning, I needed to report that our joint credit cards had been stolen. If I was lucky, some hotel maid would find Courtney's purse, which she left in the room, and take it without telling me. I had no intention of touching anything my soon-to-be ex-wife had left in the room. I also thought that if the hotel maid took the purse, it would at least give me until Tuesday. The divorce itself would be simple and clean. We lived in impeccable condition. No children, no home, no joint property. We always kept our finances separate and contributed to expenses on an equal basis. We made about the same amount of money, but the divorce was the easy part. Starting over was much more difficult. I quickly packed my suitcase and was ready to head out the door. I paused for a moment and considered leaving her a note, but then changed my mind, walked out into the corridor, and headed towards the elevator. The sound of the room's door automatically closing echoed down the hallway and signaled that I was closing the door to my previous life. On my way to the lobby, a thought occurred to me, and I stopped at the reception desk to check if everything was all right. My wife is in the car. We have an emergency at home, and we need to leave immediately. We left the keys in the room, I said. I saw the official clerk press a couple of keys and realized that the cards were inactive. I couldn't help but smile a little as I walked outside, knowing how much trouble Courtney would be in a couple of days. 7 years later, I sat in the hotel restaurant sipping iced tea, waiting for my food to arrive. The seminar was truly interesting and should be a valuable learning experience to help me in my family law practice. I noted that the date on a newspaper that someone had left on the worn vinyl seat was almost 7 years since my final divorce. Wow, time has flown, I said. At first, I didn't realize I had said it out loud and looked around to see if anyone had heard me. I hadn't thought about Courtney for a long time. Although my divorce was relatively simple, the experience made me realize how unfair the so-called no-fault system can be to the wronged party. Honestly, even though the system was there because some people can't handle their own issues and acted like children, trying to wreak havoc on the other side, and the system has to step in and handle it for them. These were the cases where the old axiom, "no one wins in divorce," actually holds true. Either way, this was the motivation I needed to change my major to family law. The truth I discovered was that most divorces these days actually only happen because both parties made up their minds. There was little arguing, and both sides worked to end their situation as quickly and painlessly as possible. I dealt with any case that was presented to me. However, I did enjoy dealing with the relatively rare cases of infidelity. I suspected that my client's wife was trying to tighten the screws with my client. My thoughts were abruptly interrupted by a voice I still recognized. "Hey, Andrew, how are you doing?" I raised my head and, incredibly, saw her. I couldn't have been more shocked if I had been hit with a cattle prod. "Hey, Courtney, believe it or not, I was just thinking about you. What are you doing at a family law seminar?" "I'm not participating. I'm here on a different issue. Can I sit down?" "I'm sorry, of course." I motioned for her to sit down. "I'm really shocked to see you, so you'll have to forgive my manners." "Wow, I really don't know what to say." She sat up straight and spoke in an angry tone. "You never even talked to me, Andrew. You never responded to any of my attempts to contact you. You never spoke a word to anyone in my family again, including my mother, who you know loved you very much. You didn't even show up to any of the hearings. You just left. I had nothing to tell you." "Really? 15 years together, and you couldn't even say goodbye before running away?" I walked up onto our porch that Monday night and was served with divorce papers before I could even walk through the door. When I finally got inside, there wasn't a single thing in the apartment that reminded me of you or our marriage. "I see. You ruined our marriage in the blink of an eye with an incredibly selfish act. And am I the bad guy? If that's all you have to say, just walk away and leave me the hell alone." "Andrew, I'm so sorry." "Just get out of here, Courtney." Now I turned purple with rage. Most of the restaurant was now looking at us. She stood up and stumbled away in tears. Just at that moment, a whirlwind hit me. It was the Chatterbox twin sisters and their little sister. They came at me at full speed, as they always did. My wife walked right behind them. She laughed and smiled, but her smile quickly disappeared when she saw my face. Her gaze darted to Courtney's rapidly retreating figure. "That's her, isn't it?" I could only nod my head as I was busy with 3 children. Without another word, my wife, Celia, rushed after Courtney. In an instant, I followed her movements with my eyes as she caught up with Courtney. They entered into a conversation, which ended with Celia helping Courtney to sit up. They must have talked for at least 10 minutes. They appeared to exchange contact information. Then Celia hugged Courtney, and they parted ways. Celia returned to the table and grabbed our youngest, so I had a chance to fight the twins into a corner. My eyes and mouth were wide open as Celia sat back down. "She's coming to our house in a couple of weeks, and you two will talk. I mean really talk. Don't say anything, just nod your head if you understand." Her tone did not allow for objections, so I simply nodded and began to fight off the 2 little monsters in my lap that were now my life. Later that evening, in our hotel room, after the 3 musketeers had fallen asleep, Celia looked at me and asked, "Is there anything you want to say or ask her?" I took a deep breath and said quietly, "The first few years I wanted to, but probably my pride wouldn't allow me. But now, no, I have nothing to ask, and I'm glad I didn't give her that opportunity." "Then what?" "You're kidding. This can't be serious, can it?" "This is very serious. If I had let her talk to me then, perhaps she might have said something that would have made me change my mind. But then I would never have met you, and our 3 children would not exist. No, I don't need to talk to her, and I don't regret anything." She hugged me and showered me with kisses. You know what to say to a girl, don't you, baby? But the poor woman needs to talk to you, so the least you can do is sit and listen. I'll do that, but really, what's the point? All she's going to say is how sorry she is. If I ask why, she'll say she doesn't really know, etc., etc. But I'll do it for you, and maybe it'll help calm her down. But why do I need this? Andrew, be nice now. Maybe I can't define it for you, but maybe you would scream at her within a couple of minutes of seeing her. Maybe this is what will close the past for you too. You might be right, but even if you take you and the girls out of the equation, I knew even before I met you that my life was better without her. The divorce forced me to reevaluate my life and what was important to me. Oh sure, I went through the usual emotional turmoil that most people experience when a marriage fails. But this failure forced me to take a hard look at myself, something I never would have done if she hadn't acted so stupidly. I paused to think and catch my breath. They say that our greatest successes can be the result of our greatest failures, and I firmly believe that this is true in my case. I am much happier practicing family law now than I ever was practicing civil law. Sometimes I start to feel bad. It makes me feel like I really help people. I know I don't make that much money, drive a Beamer, or live in a suite with a lake view, but I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. Now what about her? Maybe you should ask her this question. What's the point, Celia? I don't have the slightest regret about where I am now. I paused and continued in a voice barely above a whisper. This may not be true. I have one regret. I should have talked to her mother. She's a really nice lady. I know she loved me, and I liked her. Since both my parents were long gone, she was like a surrogate mother to me, and I left without saying a word to her. Celia really couldn't say anything more. She had hoped that somehow the meeting would be as good for me as it was for Courtney, but now she had doubts about whether that would be the case. Was she forcing this on me? And it would only serve to dredge up a past I no longer cared about? But could she stop it? As it turned out, Celia didn't need to do anything. The meeting never took place. The night before Courtney was due to come into town, Celia's phone rang after midnight. At that time, she was always afraid to answer the phone for fear of bad news, but she answered reflexively. There was a clearly upset woman on the other line. Celia, this is Angela Jones, Courtney's mother. I need to talk to Andrew. The ringing phone woke me, and Celia handed it to me. This is for you. Andrew, this is Angela. Courtney committed suicide yesterday afternoon. This statement was followed by the sobs of a woman experiencing such severe pain that it is impossible to describe. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know what to say. Oh, God, it's my fault. Now my tears were flowing, but there were no words. Celia, who heard all this, clung tightly to me and now cried openly, thinking that this was somehow her fault. Andrew, it's not your fault. She had a lot of problems, and she brought them on herself after the divorce. You don't know much about her. She left you a sealed letter. I hid it from the police. Nobody knows about its existence except you and me. What do you want me to do about it? Andrew, just keep it to yourself for now and let me think about it. Can you do that? Certainly, Mom. I need you to be with me. Can you come? I'll be there as soon as I can, Mom. I'm going to take my whole family with me. I want you to meet them. I know you'll like them. I'll call you back tomorrow and we'll make a plan. Is anyone with you now? You shouldn't be alone. Yes, my friend Joyce is staying with me. I can't wait to meet your family. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And the phone went off. Courtney's memorial service took place 7 days later on a cold but clear fall day. As promised, my family and I were there. There were only a few people in the hall. Apparently, despite being a very competent lawyer, Courtney had no real friends. She was cremated, and her ashes were to be scattered in the park she and I frequented when we were dating. Angela said it was the happiest time of Courtney's life. Losing her daughter by her own hand was an almost unbearable burden for Angela. But she quickly fell in love with Celia and especially our 3 girls. By the end of the week, the girls started calling her Grammy Angie. Angela explained what happened to Courtney's life after I left. I was shocked by revelations about risky behavior, substance abuse, and mental health problems that followed the divorce. She even explained the reason why Courtney was staying at the same hotel as me. She disappeared with two men she met at a nightclub and was missing for over a week. When she returned, she had bruises. According to Angela, this was nothing unusual. Courtney also came close to losing her work partnership. I was amazed at how rock bottom her life had gotten because of a sudden decision that had sent her life out of control. The night before we were to go home, Celia and I had a long talk and came to some decisions. The next morning, I pulled Angela aside while Celia kept the girls occupied. "Mom, we need to talk about a couple of things. First of all, Celia and I want you to come live with us. There's nothing keeping you here now. You don't have to make a decision right away. However, we want you to think about this very seriously. We would like you to be with us. If you decide, we will be there to help you move. Please think about it, okay?" "Oh dear, that's so sweet of you. I promise I will think about this carefully, but I will miss her so much." I held her as she tried to calm down. When she calmed down, I continued, "We must talk about the letter. I think the best thing we can do is take the letter and throw it unopened into this fireplace. This letter is for you, Andrew. I know, but I will never read it. If you give it to me, I will burn it. However, I want to give you the opportunity to keep it. I don't know about you, but I want my memories of Courtney to last before the divorce. Your memories should also be of that time, and I worry that if we read this letter, we will remember her as she became after the divorce. I don't want anything to do with this damn letter. I'm giving it to you. If you decide to read it, the only thing I would ask is that you never, and I mean never, mention anything about it to me." Angela was shocked by my answer, but began to understand my reasoning. She desperately wanted to remember her daughter as she was before her actions ruined her life. Maybe there was genuine remorse and recognition of how painful her decision was, but maybe there was just more pain inside. I told her about how my meeting with Courtney went a few weeks ago. What if Courtney only had more anger and guilt to throw at me? Courtney wasn't in the best state of mind, especially since she ran into me. Angela was torn apart. Before we left for home, Celia also spoke privately with Angela. "Please, please come live with us. We really want you to be a part of our family's life. I don't think you understand how important you are to Andrew." "I promise. Honey, I'll think about it. It would be great to be around young people again," Angela responded thoughtfully. As we left for home with tears and hugs, Angela collapsed into a chair in the living room in front of the fireplace. She pulled out the letter and looked at it closely. She knew she had to make a decision. Angela lived with the memories of the 15 years I spent with Courtney and our lives as successful lawyers. She remembered the parties after which we planned to think about children. That night, Courtney drank too much and said that she was free for the evening and had already chosen a man for the weekend, assuring me that afterward she would be ready to give birth to our children. I didn't argue. I just went home, and 2 days later, on Monday, she was served with divorce papers. 7 years had passed since then. I now had my own law office, a smart and beautiful wife, and 3 daughters, 2 twins and a younger one. I accidentally met my ex at a hotel, and she complained that I never spoke to her once after that party. I asked her to leave. However, Celia arranged a meeting with her at our home, but the meeting did not take place. Her mother called and said that Courtney had committed suicide. We attended her farewell ceremony. Later, her mother explained that Courtney's life had gone downhill, and she also left me a suicide letter. I refused to read the letter, but asked her mother, who treated me very well, to come live with us. Angela promised to think about it. Well, folks, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the content as much as I enjoyed making it. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment below with your thoughts and tell me your stories. I'd love to hear them. Cheers, and see you in the next one.